Hey guys, this is Chris Monk at Highline Guitars, and you're watching another episode of From the Luthier's Workbench. In this episode, what I'm going to be talking about is it's going to be the final part of my 6-string Floyd Rose Apollyon guitar build. And what I'm going to cover is just some of the basics of what I do to set up a guitar to get it ready for sale. And that kind of brings me back to repeating something which I have said before in previous episodes, and that is I'm not trying to give you specific tips, tools, and tricks about how I do this work. The purpose of this particular series was to explain the order in which I do things. And the reason I'm doing that is because I found over the years your chances of success at building a guitar greatly increase if you have a well thought out series of steps that you're going to follow. If you just try to build a guitar without a good plan and an idea of how you're going to get from point A to point B, you may get lucky and it may work, but the chances are, especially if you build a number of guitars, you're going to encounter those situations where something doesn't work out quite right. And when that happens, you can usually go back and look at what you've done and see that maybe if you had changed the order in which you did things, it might have worked out a little bit better. The series of steps that I follow is what I have found works really well for me after building a couple of hundred guitars. And you may want to try to do things differently, and by all means, go for it. But do so at your own risk. I know that the series of steps that I follow that I have explained in this 7-part series works for me, and it's worked very well. And that came as a result of a lot of years of experience. But like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the basics of the setup, and you'll notice I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, and some of you may say, well, wait a minute, he didn't do this or he didn't do that. Chances are I did do it, I just am not featuring every single aspect. I'm just trying to explain to you this is the part where I do the setup, and there's a little bit more to it than that, so let's dive in and get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the screws that hold the spring claw for the Floyd Rose tremolo bridge. And the reason I do that is I like to increase that spring tension because I know that when I string up the guitar, it's going to pull the bridge out of level. Now after I've tightened those springs, you can see how the Floyd Rose bridge is kind of sitting at a downward angle towards the back. So what I'll do is I'll prop it up with a pink rubber eraser, which I slide under the back of the bridge and position it until I can release the downward pressure on the tremolo arm and the bridge stays level. Whenever I string up a guitar, I always make sure I have at least 2 sets of strings standing by, because typically what happens is during the setup process, I can wear down a set of strings pretty quickly, and I like to ship a guitar out with a brand new set. So here I am just installing the E string. It's a 0.46 gauge string. These are 10s, so, and then I'll attach them to the tuner. And as you can see, I don't have the locks in place yet. That'll come later. Now once I've installed the strings, I like to give them what I call a coarse tune-up. And what the goal here is to see how the bridge is going to react under string tension. If while tuning the strings I notice that the back of the bridge rises up off of that eraser, I know that there's too much string tension. So what I'll do is I'll tune the strings slightly flat. If the bridge dips when I pull out that eraser, that means there's too much spring tension. So I'll tune the strings slightly sharp. This guitar has a little bit too much string tension, so what I did was I tuned the strings slightly flat, and now I'll increase the spring tension to pull it back down to level, and that should pull the strings back into tune. I'm using a precision ruler here and placing it on the 12th fret so I can check the action. Now I can raise or lower the bridge to get it where I like it to be. I'll go ahead and install the string locks at the nut, but I won't tighten them down just yet. I'll hang the guitar for a couple of days to let the strings stretch out naturally. After the strings have had a chance to stretch and settle in, and of course you can do that manually if you're in a hurry, but I'm not, so I didn't. I'll coarse tune the strings, but before you can coarse tune the strings, you need to make sure that the fine tuners at the bridge are adjusted to their midpoint, or you're just going to be wasting time. Also, the string should be coarse tuned with the locks at the nut loose. Once the strings are coarse tuned, I'll go ahead and tighten down the string locks at the nut. Now I can adjust the fine tuners at the bridge to dial in each string. I'll do a quick check of the guitar's intonation with each string by pressing the string down at the 12th fret and comparing that with the open string. And if I need to, I can loosen the lock on the bridge saddle and move it forward or backward in order to bring that string into perfect intonation. But later on, I'll do a more detailed intonation. I usually wait and do that before the guitar ships. Here I'm playing each string at each fret, looking for any potential problems like a high spot on one of the frets. For the most part, with stainless steel frets, I generally don't have any issues with that. But occasionally I will run into maybe 1 or 2 frets that have a high spot that need additional work. I'm noticing a little bit of fret buzz when I get up to the 12th fret. That means that one of the frets above the 12th is probably got a high spot in it. So I'll quickly identify which fret it is by using a fret rocker to confirm my suspicions. I'll level crown and repolish the offending fret and then string the guitar back up, tune it, and test it to make sure that I took care of the issue. As far as final assembly is concerned, all that's left are a few minor details, like the strap buttons. And of course I can close off the control cavity at this point. There's no work left to be done in there. Since the tremolo springs have been adjusted to the correct amount of tension, I can put the lid on the cavity. And I can't forget the tremolo arm. Okay, well that concludes this episode and closes out this final part 7 of the Apollyon 6-string Floyd Rose guitar build. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, wow, is that all he does when he performs a setup on a guitar? No, there's a lot more that's involved. But like I said at the beginning, I'm only touching on the subject to explain the order of the steps. In truth, what I'm going to do now is this guitar will sit up on a wall and I'll let it sit there for a while, and when I feel like it, I'll put it up for sale. And it may take a week or 2 or a month or 2 months or whatever to sell, but once it sells, I'll take the guitar back down off the wall and I'll do a more comprehensive setup. And what that will involve is, the first thing I'll do is I'll tune the strings, and then I like to take my notch straight edge and check the fretboard to make sure that it's absolutely dead flat and level. I know some people like a little bit of relief on their necks. Some people don't, and that's the reason why I ship it flat. If you want a little bit of relief, you can have a local guitar tech adjust the truss rod to give you that relief. So I just ship it flat. I think that that's just the best way to go. Then I'll check to make sure that the intonation is good, and I will play every string at every fret all the way up and down the neck. I'll bend every string at every single fret up and down the neck, and then just play some things to see how the guitar is performing, and make sure that there is no unexpected high frets, no dead frets, and that everything is in order. So that's really about all there is to it. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. I know I enjoyed making it. And I guess until next time, hasta la vista.